Good. So I have a pleasure introducing you to our distinguished guest speaker today, Mr. Grover VOS. Grover VOS is a safety, industrial hygiene, and environmental professional with over 35 years of experience across a wide range of industries. Grover started his career after receiving both a bachelor's and master's of science from Texas A&M. As a corporate level director, manager, technical leader, and professional, Grover has extensive hands-on technical and leadership experience. Directed the conceptual development and implementation of several multifunctional safety, health, environment, energy, and security programs for a number of multinational corporations. In addition, Grover has been actively engaged in the development and growth of the SHE auditing and assessment processes. He has participated as a team leader and member in a large number of corporate and facility multifunctional audits and several multi-billion-dollar acquisition, discovery, disclosure activities. Currently, Mr. Grover is the managing principal of VOS Consulting, a small SHE consulting company located in Bryan College Station, Texas area. Please join me and welcome Mr. VOS to our presentation. Floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me. Can I share my screen?
Absolutely, please.
Okay. There we go. Great. Okay. As Babak said, I've been doing this for quite some time, and a lot of things have changed over the years. But human nature being what it is, a lot of things have not changed over the years. People are still people. Businesses are still businesses. And if what we're trying to convince people to do is not good business, chances are they're going to try and fight us every step of the way, no matter how beneficial to them in the long run, what we want them to do really is. I am running a small consulting firm. If you look at my slide here, it says that I've retired or surrendered my certifications. The Certified Safety Professional certification is something that you can retire with. That does not really carry any true bona fides as far as certification goes, but it is a recognition that for over 50 years, I actually did professional safety as a certified professional. Industrial hygienist, certified industrial hygiene certification, you're required to surrender that. So you cannot even claim to have been one theoretically. And if you look at the code of ethics of both organizations, that's pretty clear. The other certification organization that I dealt with is the Certified Professional Environmental Auditor certification. This is an organization that came into being in and around the time of Bhopal, and there was actually a need for recognition for people that were getting into that field. As Babak said, I went to Texas A&M, and by the time I finally got out of there, I'd spent about a quarter of my life at Texas A&M. So going, into basically what I did for a living for the last, the way I phrased it, the first 50 years, because I'm not done yet. A lot of external factors impacted my career early on. A lot of those had to do with the signing of legislation that enacted the Occupational Safety and Health Administration and the Environmental Protection Agency. Both of those were signed by Richard M. Nixon in 1970 and have had a major influence on my life and career for the entire 53 years, still does. If you glance briefly, I tried not to include everything, but you'll notice that the federal government was very diligent after 1970. It's not to say that there was not any regulation before 1970. One element that's down there in the 1970 range was the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act. It's now administered by EPA, and formerly it was handled by another agency. So, regulation was around that protected not only employees, but our environment. Also dealt with something that at the time a lot of people considered to be relatively nebulous: product safety. And stemming from product safety, taking a broader context, you actually got into not only the safety of your product, because if you're in the chemical industry, the physics of our universe dictate that your products are not safe. They are designed to be reactive by their very nature. If they were not, they would not have any benefits. So looking really for a more beneficial term, if you will, something that approached a truer reality: product stewardship. How do you care for your toxic chemicals in your toxic products? How do you actually help people use them in a manner that protects their health and safety? I'm assuming that the folks that are on the line today are professionals. If there are any individuals that are new to the field, either just entering their educational phase or their professional phase, bear with me. I will jump from very basic concepts to things that might be something that you haven't been introduced to, because it's not something that an individual contributor would necessarily have to deal with. Not to say that they aren't interesting or important. If you go down to the educational block, one of the things that if you are in an educational situation, you're new to the field, not a practicing professional, I would highly recommend that you investigate some form of internship. I'd also recommend that if on your campus, or if you have access to a professional association, American Society of Safety Professionals, that name was changed just a few years back. It used to be American Society of Safety Engineers, and I believe Jim Thornton is the current president. Jim Thornton and I used to share a desk. He worked at TVA back in 1972. When I showed up at TVA, Jim waved at me as he walked out the office and went to Texas A&M to work on his master's. So not only did I inherit his desk, he inherited mine back at the university. There are people that are in leadership roles in our profession today that have been around for a long time. Not saying that's necessarily a requirement for being in a leadership role. What I am trying to get to is that you need to get started in the pipeline. If you have aspirations for doing something to give back to your profession as you move from the middle of your professional career forward, or if you're just entering, you need to get involved now if you are not already involved. The other aspect of career development that I'd like to at least touch on is certification. Certification is not for everyone. It's not necessary for most of the jobs in our profession. If you want to be a consultant, if you want to do auditing as a part of your career, which is really just a quality assurance activity within the overall professions of environmental health and safety, product stewardship, security. You can cut this beast into many pieces. and look at specialty areas all you want, but the whole actually needs to be looked at in its entirety occasionally. And that's a team activity typically. There are very few people that have the time or the energy to take on an audit or an assessment that is totally encompassing for a facility or an organization and do a really top quality job. You can touch on pieces of it, focused audits, focused assessments, that type of thing. But again, people that want to do that, I feel really, really strongly that you need to be certified in the particular field that you're going to be auditing or assessing. For about a 12-year period, I worked on the Board of Certified Environmental Auditors Educational Certification Committee, and was responsible for the development of the certification exams in that organization, as well as grading exams. Most of the certification exams have a true and false or multiple choice component, or maybe a couple of components, short answer component, and then many of the more rigorous ones will have more than a short answer. They actually want you to describe a process, a output, and maybe even give some examples of how you would present a finding to the person that you're doing the audit for. So, relatively difficult exams to grade, and also relatively thorough exams to take. If you look at the Board of Certified Safety Professionals exams, the American Board of Industrial Hygiene exams, they're also equally as rigorous, although their formats do differ slightly. My involvement with the Board of Environmental Auditor Certification actually came as a charge from the American Board of Industrial Hygiene, where I was charged to represent the board on a task force that was looking at looking at certification across environmental health and safety organizations. So sort of grew out of my involvement with the ABIH. And if you have any interest, those organizations are always looking for talented people to help out with either their local organizations and also at the national level. Feel free to get involved. If you take a look, there's a lag period from graduation to certification, but not so with professional associations or organizations. You can get involved at the student level if you want to, and I highly advocate that. Looking at the progression of a career, I'm not going to go into any detail with about the companies that I work for, but I would like to touch on what contributions I felt that I made in each of those portions of my career. A lot of hands-on work, a lot of individual contributor activity. For industrial hygiene, that involved in the early days, not only designing sampling regimes, but conducting them, in many cases, actually doing some of the analysis, because at that point in time, it was really, really difficult to find a laboratory that could do quality work. And I guarantee you, back in the day, water chemists did their fair share of industrial hygiene sample analysis. And if you ever want to take a look at what's happening in the analytical world, don't hesitate to go down to the lab if you're at a facility, talk with the people down there. The regulations for chemical lab safety are much, much greater today, and they're much more involved with you probably anyway than they were way back in the day. And I apologize for those distant references, but you know, it may be history for some people, but it's memories for some of us. And I have to admit, they're good memories. Taking a look at the next step in what a career can hold. At some point in time, if you stick with it long enough, or if you show any aptitude for being able to communicate with people, with actually put your findings from doing your exposure assessments, that type of thing, into some kind of salient report, people are going to start to look at you to take the next step and work with other people to help them achieve a better level of performance. You might call that supervision, you might call that peer leadership, but it's a phenomena that if you do well, it'll naturally occur. Sometimes you need to push the issue a little bit, and that gets to be a little more formal. A lot of people like, a nice steady job, no change, the challenges, or the challenges you can deal with. Then there are people that, looking for something new all the time. And if you're not looking for it, if you look at the top of this slide, government regulations are always going to be coming down the pike that will challenge you to look beyond what you're already doing. So, embrace the change. The next level above supervision tends to be management, and it can take many forms. It can be at a facility level. It can be within your group, not quite at the full facility level, company level. You may actually get tapped if you're doing safety. I was involved with an on-site fire department for a while. Even though my job was basically industrial hygiene, they needed somebody to, help direct the fire brigade. It's something that, is interesting. It's challenging. It can be extremely rewarding when you go out on calls, when you get called in the middle of the night and you have to respond. It's exhilarating. May not be for everybody, but definitely not in the industrial hygiene or the product stewardship realm. And if those are more along the lines of what you'd like to do, or if your initial entree into the arena is through the environmental fields, it may be totally foreign to you. But it is something that is easily engaged in. And people that, are willing to step up, take a look at it, work with the people that are truly the professionals in their organization. It can be really rewarding to take on a role, not necessarily a fire chief's role if you're an industrial hygienist, but any role that expands or broadens your technical expertise and your knowledge baseline, which gets into another thing. 53 years is not a long time in the grand scheme of things, but there have been a lot of changes in the concept of something as simple as analysis of industrial hygiene samples. Back in the day, prior to 1970, Public Health Service or Human Health and Wellness was definitely involved in some of the early industrial hygiene type work. It was more of a public health and than a safety issue, but it was definitely something that was on the radar going back, into the late 30s, early 40s. So by 1970, it was not a new concept, not a new field. You start looking at, some of the samplers they had. Greenberg Impingers was, half a liter. In size, you carried those around. They were hard to strap to people's back and have them carry them around because they spilled. But, if you set them out in the work area, you could get a good area representation. Again, it's wet chemistry. It's not conducive to really doing breathing zone monitoring. And if you wanted to try and get a better estimate pre-1970, there really weren't a whole lot of direct reading instruments. And the ones that we did have read in percentages as opposed to parts per million or milligrams per cubic meter. So if you look at what we look at today, where parts per billion, parts per trillion are not unheard of as far as analytical techniques, and you've got the capability, even economically, to analyze sample doing a quadrupole mass spec as a front end with a quadrupole back end. You can get down to the parts per trillion. You can actually count atoms almost. That's a great gap in difference between what we started with and where we are now. And I dare say, it's not where we're going to end up. Yeah, it's only going to get easier and easier, more and more accurate to do hazard assessment, exposure assessment, that type of thing. And I've digressed a little bit. If you continue to do a good job, the only thing I can promise you is that somebody is going to offer you an even harder and more difficult job. So if that's something that you're not interested in, keep that in mind. But if you're up to a challenge, if you like change, and if you can not only recognize the opportunities, but manage the chaos that goes along with change, go ahead, step up, move up the organization. Just remember that nobody ever got an easier job by getting a promotion. Being a corporate manager, being a corporate director, officer of the company, signing your name to environmental permits, things like that as an officer of the company, realizing that something is old school as Sarbanes-Oxley, and the whole basis for why we do environmental health and safety auditing today, that as an officer of a company or a corporation, you are personally liable. You can go to jail. Again, if you're up for it, go for it. There are times when the plan doesn't necessarily go the way you think it will. What do you do in the interim? Consulting is always a good fallback position. It's also an extremely good, first choice for something to do. I have friends that went to work for a consulting firm right out of school. They started their own businesses. They've done extremely well, continue to do well. Many of them are still working. Some of us just moved to the consulting realm a little bit later in life. And then there are times when, you move back into the corporate workforce and your first entree into a new environment is back as an individual contributor, and then subject matter expert. And then, my gosh, if you've done it before, they'll make you do it again. So watch out. You might end up doing your old job only for a different company. And, sometimes it's even more fun. And then, when it's finally time to step back, let younger people take up the baton and, as they say, green the workforce. Consulting is always a realm that holds tremendous reward. I'm going to switch a little bit and talk a little bit. Well, how do you go through all this? What do you do? To get from the time you get out of school until the time you finally decide to step back. Because I guarantee you, if you enjoy doing it, you'll never really stop doing it. What do you plan to do with your life is really what you need to ask yourself. And you'll probably be asking yourself that daily if if you're really good at it. And part of that question is, really, where do you want to end up? If you want to be a consultant, if that's your first choice, why wait until, your 40th year roughly to get into the business that you really want to be in? Why don't you just start there and work your way up through the different aspects of being a consultant? And being a consultant, one of the things that is really rewarding is the breadth of activities you can get involved in. You can be an individual contributor. You can be a marketing person. You can be a business development person. You can write proposals. You can write plans to accomplish the work. You can actually do the work if you want to. There are a tremendous amount of flexibility in what aspects of a consulting business you can do, either early on or as you progress through the time of your career. If you really don't know what you want to do, internships definitely will help. Also, if you have an opportunity to talk with other professionals, find out what their experience has been. Again, one way to do that is find a professional association. If you're in safety, look for ASSP for the student section. If you're in school, if there's not one immediately where you're at, I worked at a 7,000 man steel mill up in East Texas at one point in time. And the nearest ASSE section at that point in time was in Dallas, 3.5, 4 hours away. So really not conducive to, a Wednesday or a Tuesday night run over to Dallas for a 2-hour meeting once a month. The next closest one was down in Houston, which is even further away. So, not always available, but, if you speak with other people in and around your area, we were able to put together a venue where we actually started a chapter in that East Texas area. It lasted for a few years, and then a lot of us moved on. And as I understand, the section, the chapter is now a student section over at University of Texas at Tyler, Texas, which was, one of a educational focal points that developed in that area for environmental health and safety. So get involved earlier, and that will help you actually look at some of the routes to get where you want to end up, give you some ideas about where you might want to end up. Once you have a better idea, if you want to be an individual contributor, if you're an entire career, stay at one facility, fine, that's great. People need to fill those jobs, need to fill those positions. It's very rewarding. A lot of people will step away from a facility job, get into company or corporate level activities or a regional position, and then realize that, I really enjoyed the day-to-day interaction with the workforce that I grew up with. And, sometimes find it possible to get back into a facility, maybe doing something a little higher up the totem pole than they were before, but equally as rewarding. So never box yourself in by saying, I would never do whatever it is. Always be flexible. Always think about, what you're doing is the possibility of being the best job I've got now or the best future job I may have. And as I said, what if things don't go as planned? Again, be flexible. There are a lot of ways to find another job. The best way to find another job is to know someone that's with a company that needs someone. So developing a network, talking with people, visiting with people, sharing your expertise with people, One of the things that I did in one of my roles was act as maybe I should talk a little bit about this arrow first. This is not a continuum. One of my jobs, I was working as the industrial hygiene manager. I was a specialist in industrial hygiene. I was also a specialist for product safety, product stewardship, but I was actually acting as a coach for 9 different facilities in industrial hygiene. And over a 3-year period, we took a number of facilities in our organization that had 0 certified industrial hygienists to all of them having certified industrial hygienists. And it was basically through a coaching activity, spending a lot of time on the telephone, talking with people, walking them through the different areas of expertise that they needed, things that they were actually doing on a day-to-day basis. And, some of the things that took them forward in their career to get certification actually took them forward in performing a better job, understanding the concepts that go into creating a better sampling routine, doing a better hazard assessment, writing a better report, one that's more attuned to what management is really looking for, as opposed to something that's, yes, technically accurate, supported by data that cannot be questioned, and caveated in every way you can caveat it, but really doesn't tell the plant manager what he needs to do. If you can make the leap and do that, and getting a certification might not help you do that, but it will definitely move you in that direction. It will also let the people know that you have a certain level of expertise. Certification is really a minimum. It's a floor. If you look at when I got certified back in the mid 70s, I went into consulting full time at the end of 2012. There's a significant period of time in there. I assure you, I learned a lot more in the period of time between getting certified and going into consulting than I did in the 5 years, 7 years counting getting my master's, 11 years getting my bachelor's, and getting certified. I can assure you, I learned a lot more the second half of my career. So, how will you know when you made it? You won't. There's really no way to know, short of that final decision that someone else is going to make for you, and you don't have to get up in the morning anymore. That's when I figure I'll know that I've made it. Taking the journey, you got to know a lot of things to be able to make decisions. You've got to know a lot of things to make, a plan, to understand what you want to do and what you're capable of doing and how you can move forward with your life. And, one of the things back in the late 80s, there was an unfortunate incident in Bhopal, India. And 2,000 people outside of a plant in Bhopal were killed in a horrendous accident outside of a plant that was ultimately designed to make 7, which is a relatively safe, easy to use pesticide. Because it is relatively safe and can be used on food crops, and it was anticipated by the Indian government to be a great boon to their agricultural industry. Problem is that 7 was developed for the American agricultural market. It was not a cheap product to make. Methyl isocyanate was one of the raw materials. Again, If that's your product, if you make methyl isocyanate, you know it's reactive. You know that it's toxic. You know that its breakdown products are lethal. The people that designed and engineered the facility to take that raw material, work it through the process, had 5 layers of protection to keep that facility from causing any internal worker exposure problems or external environmental problems. All that said and done, it did happen. It also kicked off an international uh, effort to look at process safety management in depth. Process safety management was not new. It did not originate or start with Bhopal. The fact that the plant in Bhopal had the layers of protection built into it that it did is just an indication that our community, the environmental health and safety and engineering community, was aware of what was necessary to protect not only the workers in the plant, but the communities around our plants. So, you know, it's something that management finally woke up to. And Sarbanes-Oxley is sort of the next step. It's the legal implication that comes out of corporations saying, or at the level of the board of directors, that we gave them all the money they asked for. We told them they could do whatever they wanted to. We didn't know what they were actually going to do, but we gave them everything they needed. And Sarbanes-Oxley says, no, you have an obligation to know what's going on in your corporation. So operational auditing and the environmental health safety, process safety ad nauseum reign actually started, long before that. Some of the precepts, concepts of true operational auditing go back into the late 70s. A company that you might have heard of, might not have, Arthur D. Little, had a couple of guys that wrote a book about it. Working with them in the late 80s, I was involved in an effort that put together, and this all stemmed from an even earlier incident that started with a chemical that was used to control fire ants in Texas, Amdro, and its base raw materials, and the loss of control by the company that made Amdro through farming out the production of their raw materials, because it was known to have some pretty bad side effects to a couple of people that thought they could handle it. So they started up a little company and on the James River in Virginia, and all of a sudden the stuff was all up and down the river and causing all kinds of environmental problems. And that was sort of the inception of product safety and product stewardship raising its ugly little heads, or their ugly little heads. And it also was, the impetus behind some of the first steps in environmental health and safety auditing, taking it that next step from being just a checklist or a walk around inspection to the next level of verification and confirmation. And those are the concepts that really get into looking at management systems. And most of you recognize the little diagram here is, you've got what we look at as far as industrial hygiene and safety, anticipation of a hazard, recognition, evaluation, and control of it. Okay, let's take that and apply it on top of a management system. And you get into the plan, do, check, act activity. Great way to look at any problem. And I'm not going to go any further with that. So, okay, you're going to put together a plan. You got to ask yourself, you know, what do I like to do? And why is like important? Well, like for one thing actually makes work less work. And that sounds funny to me as I say it, but it really does. You may not enjoy writing reports, but if you're good at it, the more you do it, the easier it gets. Okay, let's look at the third bullet that I've got over here. Understand your strengths and weaknesses. If you cannot write a good report and you spend all your effort trying to improve your report writing skills, but you are a phenomenal speaker and you do tremendously well in front of the crowds at your organization, speaking, either safety meetings, talking about, things that have grown to be sort of normal in our workplace today, like job safety analysis, things like that. If you spend all your time trying to improve your writing skills, I can assure you your speaking skills are going to deteriorate. And when they deteriorate, you're not going to be doing the best job that you really can. You need to make sure that what weaknesses you recognize you have, they need to be at a level that is not threatening your performance. But I can assure you, if you spend all your time trying to make a weakness a strength, you're not going to succeed. Work with your strengths. Find out what you do well and work towards it. As we go down through here and you've looked at some of the other things, don't forget the little things. How do you transition from a small job to a big job? You do it by making sure you're addressing all the little things, taking care of the people that involve, doing things that most people really, aren't that fond of doing. I actually made birthday cakes at one of my jobs because I'm a better baker than anybody else in the group. And, you can't imagine just something little like that. I had a director that loved to do birthday cards and anniversary cards and was great at it, handmade them. Little things like that don't contribute to the organization at all, do they? And you need to celebrate others' achievements. Okay, last slide. And I apologize if I've, I've run out of time.
Yeah,
We've talked.
Mr. Voss, we truly enjoy that, and thank you for that. But we'd love to have at least a few minutes for presentation, for audience to ask presenter some questions. So, yeah, you can finish the last slide. That's fine. But just briefly, thank you.
It's something we talked about. Know what motivates you. We all know Maslow's hierarchy of needs. McClelland's, motivational factors. What motivates you? Belonging to a group, having control over a group, or just getting things done. And then, self-determination theory. Do you understand that there are going to be things outside of your control? Extrinsic factors that you can either make things that help motivate you, and if you can recognize the tangible rewards from them, if you can reconcile your ego and get down and knuckle down, do the work, and then what do you believe in? You need to recognize that, and if you've never really thought about these things, you don't really need to. There'll be points in life where you'll be struggling with something, and just go look up motivational theory, and that'll help you get through some of this. And actually, right here, become a lifelong learner is the takeaway from this slide. With that, I'd like to open it up to questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah. audience, please feel free, use the chat box or, well, I can get us started with the first question. What in your career, what kind of, traits of personality you believe would be a better match for this field of occupational safety and health? What type of personnel? I think you, to some extent, summarized that, but what stands out for you as far as the people dedicated to this career and coming and staying and moving up?
Well, one of the things that I've found is a common denominator across the field is that people in the environmental health and safety field care. They care about other people. They care about things that contribute to a greater good. I'm not saying everyone does. There are a lot of selfish industrial hygienists, a lot of selfish safety people, but they're doing what they're doing because they know it has value and they care. And also, they tend to be flexible. If you look at the skill set that a mechanical engineer requires, is probably 12 to 14 really hardcore skill sets that a true mechanical engineer, design mechanical engineer, deals with on a day-to-day basis. If you look at someone in the environmental health and safety field, you're layering on another 7 to 15 skill sets that range from just out management, hazard communication, crisis communication, process design understanding, workflow, things that a lot of people don't even think about. Most people, if you ask someone, how do you brew a cup of coffee? Easy, I pop the lid on the Keurig and I drop in a K-cup. Okay. Let's say you have to brew a cup of coffee from scratch. How do you do it? And then it gets to be a little more complicated. Some people are intrigued by things that are more than just basic, and actually provide a benefit not only to themselves but society and to the people that are around them. A lot of people, the fact that they care actually at some point can become, a challenge they need to examine, because, you're not always going to be successful in protecting people. My experience in the safety field, having worked at a steel mill and having my first safety investigation there being an individual in the ingot mold foundry falling into an empty crucible. It was traumatic. There was not much left, and it was not a fun experience. The crucible was 2,200 degrees. Even though it was nominally empty, his job was clearing up the bung hole, which is where the molten steel pours out, and he slipped, fell in.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, there would be those moments. So what's your suggestions? Because as a safety professional, you put a lot on your back, and that takes a toll on anybody. How do you go, not just high times when things are safe and you feel proud of what you achieve, when things do not work in a way you envision? Maybe a sense of blaming yourself that, I could have done a better job, or I might have been able to save life or something like that? When things go down on the low times, what's your suggestion? What's your...
Okay. One thing is not to blame yourself. Look, one of the things that came out of the nuclear industry is root cause analysis.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying that, in its basic form, root cause analysis is, the end all be all, but it's a way to answer some questions. And it's a way to find places for improvement to prevent what happened from happening again. And being able to identify those things is a critical skill, and also helps you understand, where you can put your effort going forward to keep those particular incidents from happening again. And what you're literally looking at are the extremely infrequent, very rare, but highly catastrophic events. So not only from a personal safety, but also from a process and equipment safety perspective. Back in the day, we didn't have a lot of metrics. So we used injury, illness as a surrogate for being able to really look at process safety failure and what are the things that lead up to process safety failure. But the more you understand, not easier to deal with, but at least it's a way to put it into perspective.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Watts. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, George, for your nice comment. Thank you, everybody who attend. We are taking a little break here as heading to the holiday. I wish everybody happy and safe holiday season. We're taking December and January off, but as you can see on the schedule, we're going to be back on February 6th. We have a great speaker, Mr. Kirk Mahan from Georgia Pacific is going to be with us, and then the other two events, you can see that on your screen, March 28th and April 17th. Please mark your calendar. These are midday events, 12 Eastern time or 1 Central, and we hope to see you guys again. And this is a link for professional master's degree in occupational safety and health at Georgia Tech. So please consider joining us for the fall 2024 cohort. And once again, thanks, Grover, from sharing all those many years of experience. And certainly, I have to say, on a personal note, you must be a great father. Your son, we are all proud of him, and definitely a great asset for our Georgia Tech family.
Well, just to put it in perspective, I'm in the middle. My father was a safety specialist for Texas Employers Insurance.
Yeah, good. As I said, it runs in the family. It's in your blood. Thank you, Stephanie, Kirk, and everybody else from the GTPE. And with that, we conclude our session.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you.